This video supported in part by if you were an Atari 2600 owning video game player in the early 80s, the odds are good that you're also a fan of the publishing company Imagic. Imagic titles were easily identified on the shelf with the shiny chrome box and the rainbow decoration, and you wanted to spot them too because like Activision before them, Imagic has some above caliber quality games that were beneficiaries of Atari not treating their developers well enough, which led to them flying the coop and forming their own publishing companies like Imagic. Welcome back to GenXGrownUp. I'm John and I am a GenXGrownUp, and the particular Imagine title that I want to talk about today is Atlantis. Atlantis was released in 1982 and you're probably familiar with it. It was wildly popular. It drew its inspiration from an arcade title called Colony 7, but the entire concept is quite missile commandy. You have some bases with some attackers coming from above. In this case, they're not ICBMs, just flying spaceships that want to bomb your cities and your missile silos. What many people don't know about Atlantis, though, is that it had a secret sequel also published by Imagic. And no, I'm not talking about Atlantis II. They did a contest called Destination Atlantis where people would mail in their high scores, and it turns out people were getting such high scores that they created Atlantis II and distributed them to the highest scoring players, a more difficult version of Atlantis, to kind of try to find out who the cream of the crop was. No, what I'm talking about is an entirely different game that came out the same year as Atlantis, and odds are you have probably already played it and didn't realize the two were connected. End of the world scenarios are nothing new in video gaming, and it certainly wasn't new with Atlantis. When ultimately you aren't able to defend your cities well enough and the game ends, you would think a big explosion and your high score would be the end. But there's one more little nugget at the end of Atlantis that you've got to pay attention to, because Atlantis has survivors. Look at this small UFO that whisks away as the screen is flashing. That was no accident, and it's not a dangling thread that was never addressed, because in reality, the survivors from Atlantis went on to pilot the Cosmic Ark. That's right, that little UFO carrying the final survivors from Atlantis are piloting the ship in Cosmic Ark that's working its way around the galaxy collecting other survivors from other civilizations that have crumbled. So right about now, you may be screaming at the screen going, John, who cares if these two games are connected? They don't play similarly, they're not the same in any way, they're just published by Imagic. Well, I'm here to tell you it really did matter to me as a kid when I learned this. You might remember that with the simplicity of Atari video games, very much was left up to our imaginations to fill in. You remember that beautiful artwork, those pastel paintings that were put on the covers of our Atari games? Because the game couldn't possibly convey what's going on in the overall story. You just get a few pixels here and there and some blocks, and you have to imagine that that duck is a dragon, or you have to imagine that arrow is a sword. So having connectivity between two games that I loved enhanced my play and expanded on the world that I was playing that game in. Once I could no longer fend off the enemies in Atlantis and my UFO escaped the atmosphere, I could continue the imaginary play in my head with Cosmic Ark. Hey, these are the survivors that just fought tooth and nail, and now they're traveling the galaxy picking up other survivors. And that kind of connectivity is not something that I take lightly. Firstly, it was kind of an Easter egg to discover and find out through word of mouth. And once you did know about it, you kind of felt like you're part of a secret club who not everybody knows these two games are connected. And I should point out that it wasn't going to end there. If you play through Cosmic Ark, at the end of Cosmic Ark, when you run out of fuel, another UFO escapes. Unfortunately, that was a thread that just never got picked up on. As you might remember, this was around the time of the North American video game crash in '83, so Imagic, like Atari and anyone else publishing for Atari, probably wasn't too excited about moving forward with what they had on the docket. This might have been part of a 3-part or 4-part or maybe continuing series of this little UFO jumping from game to game. I guess we'll just never know. Hey, if you remember these Imagic titles fondly and would like to relive them, check out this video that I did just a few weeks ago where I show you how you can download and play every Atari 2600 game, including Atlantis and Cosmic Ark, right now for free on your computer. I really hope you found something to enjoy though in this video, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.